All right, and we are back. Welcome into another episode of Keeping Up with the New York Jets. Today is Wednesday, April 17th, just a little over a week before the 2024 NFL Draft. Great pod coming today. We are going to run through two different mock draft simulators for the New York Jets. One where we entertain the option of trading back, the other where we stay put or look at moving forward. We've spent enough time over the last month or so talking about all of the choices the Jets will have at the top of this draft, but now we're going to go in and see what players we can pull apart from that. Also going to give our updated thought processes as far as to where we want the Jets or think the Jets should go a week from now. Quick updates on top 30 visits, and we'll get on out here and get ready for an exciting draft week coming up soon. Before we get to all of that, make sure to follow us on our socials at KUWTNYJ, most notably Twitter and YouTube. Make sure to Teddy follow Teddy at Teddy Huncho. I am at Spring Blake with 4 A's in there. Young Theodore, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, doing great. I'm loving your Blake's got a Carmelo Anthony jersey on today, so I'm loving
Yep.
that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
that's
if
sick.
if you've been a loyal listener for the past, I guess it really only like 8 months, my AC in my house broke in August, where the top floor where I usually record does not work. Bottom middle floor totally fine. But now that it is in the 80s in Tennessee, I'm sweating my dick off up here. Finally getting it fixed next week. But I went sleeveless for the day so I could let the dogs breathe a little bit. But yeah, I had to give a shout
Very
out
nice, very
to this
nice.
legend Carmelo Anthony. He's the boy.
Yep, yep, facts. And Bush Light. Blake's got a good outfit on today, so come check us out on
I
YouTube
know,
too.
really.
Go
Double
for
bushing
it.
it. Yeah, get on the
Well,
YouTube,
yeah.
especially for today, too, because we're going to get into and share screens for the mock draft simulator, courtesy of my PFF subscription. I don't know how
Wow, look
much
at
they
you.
charge, but it's worth it. I enjoy a lot of the stuff that they put out, especially draft stuff, and that's the heart of the season that we are in. Theodore, real quick, we didn't even talk about this on the prep sheet. We can spend just like a quick couple of minutes on it. The Jets have new uniforms. That seems to be what everybody's talking about this
Yes,
week. What
yes.
are your thoughts? Take me through it. Happy, not happy, content.
Yeah, I try to like not, it's not that I try. I really don't care all that much about the uniforms. Like they're just uniforms, but I will say I did have to spend the last like 5 years kind of being like, yeah, the Jets uniforms are pretty good, even though after like 1 year I was kind of like, these blow, and we're
Yeah.
horrible and it's time to move on. I every single day, the more I see these pictures, I am like, man, these rule. Like we're gonna look so sick. You think back to last year, like we looked the best week one and week four, and we were wearing those throwback jerseys. Um, to add the green, I love the green jersey. That's my number one. I'm
Yeah.
usually a big fan of black jerseys. We'll see how it looks once they're out on the field.
Ah.
It's a little off-putting, the black and green, but I like the jerseys a lot. I like the logos a lot. One of the
Hmm.
logos that's been getting a lot of flack is one with no letters. It's just like the little swoop with the
Right. Yeah.
jet. I actually
Yeah.
like that a
You like
lot.
that one?
I think it's very cool. So yeah, I mean, for someone who thinks of himself as not caring too much about the uniforms, I've actually been very excited about these new ones. So
Yeah. I think they're definitely better than what they had before. I like that the stripes are not like these paper thin lines, and it actually
yeah,
brings a little bit of contrast to the white pants with the green top and vice
I like the
versa.
darker green too. It's like
Yeah.
more like 2009, 2010 vibes as
Exactly.
opposed to the lighter green they've gone to.
I think
Um,
the helmets are a
yeah.
cool look. The I think the black jerseys are going to be cool.
Yeah, I like them
I'm a
too.
fan of them.
I wasn't 100% sure.
It's not as nice as the others. The other two are more clean, but like you give us a Sunday night football game, come out in the all
Yeah,
blacks, that's going to be a cool look.
for
So
sure.
yeah, I'm not just ignoring Teddy on my phone. I'm looking at the images right now. Um, now, is there anything they can do for you with that Garrett Wilson 17, or are you just like shit out of luck?
I think that if I had bought it when he was a rookie, before he announced that he was
Oh,
changing, maybe like there would be some. I mean, sometimes
something you
teams
could do.
do that, like the jersey redemption or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But I was just dumb. Like I knew that Garrett Wilson was changing his number. I had known for months, and I just forgot in the moment, bought the jersey,
Yeah.
and then like went like 2
Whoops.
months, and then was like, wait a second, he said he's
Oh,
changing his number. So yeah, I mean, what are
yeah.
you gonna do? It's a cool jersey, and now it's like a throwback. You know, it's the
Oh, you
17
got the
Wilson. Like,
seven.
oh,
You
you a
got
real
rookie.
fan?
You got
Yeah,
Garrett Wilson when he had no quarterback.
right.
Oh,
Rookie card, Garrett
okay.
Wilson. That's exactly what it is.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
All in
it's
all,
cool. Hannah actually wore it to school today. It was wear your favorite team day.
interesting.
She
She didn't wear a
said,
Josh Allen jersey?
no, fuck the Bills. She said she wishes he had a Carmelo Anthony jersey. We were actually looking at the one you were wearing online yesterday. Fun fact. Um, but yeah, then she wore the Garrett Wilson jersey. So shout out her.
Fun fact about this Syracuse Carmelo Anthony jersey, we were hanging out a year ago, almost around this time, going to a Barstool Syracuse event, and
Yes, the best bar
I
towns, bar crawl.
paid double the cost of this jersey for it to arrive the next day so I could take it to Syracuse and wear it for that
Wow.
event. So that's commitment
How
and
stupid of you, but that
poor
is sick.
financial decision making.
Yeah. No, that's
So
fine.
that's why I've been living for 8 months with an AC unit that is going to cost about $2,500 in repair. So that,
There you go.
I got a cool jersey out of it though, so that's sick. All right, well, I wanted to make sure we spent a little bit of time on
No, yes, I am glad you
jersey
brought that
talk
up.
because it did seem to be the thing that everybody is loves to discuss on the internet. I just don't think we're maybe the best minds when it comes to jersey. We are going to have to update that back screen though and get the new logo back there for you at some point. We're
Oh,
going to have to get something
damn.
new for that. We're going to have to update it.
That's a
But
good point. That's a good point.
um moving on now, just a few updates as far as top 30 visits go. A lot of the Jets ones have come out recently. We went extensively over the list a week ago. Great episode there. Make sure to go back and listen to it if you haven't, connecting some dots with some of these names and targets, positional searches for the Jets. You know, we hit on the edge room. We talked about slot corners, quarterbacks as well too. Few new names popping up onto the top 30 list as far as I've got here. We've got let's see, Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. We'll have a conversation about him in a second. Troy Fautanu, one of my favorite prospects in this class, offensive guard, offensive tackle. He's in, I believe, either today when we're recording this or tomorrow, sometime this week. They are also bringing in Jaden Hicks, the safety out of Washington State. He might have been on the list from last week now that I think about it.
Yes.
So excuse me there. Let's see. Jordan Morgan at first had just done a private dinner, but now he's brought in for a top 30 visit, the offensive tackle out of Arizona. We've got we talked about Chop
JC
Robinson.
Latham was an addition from
Yes,
last week.
JC Latham. That's an interesting one. Real quick to talk about JC Latham. There's been a lot of buzz that he could be way higher on NFL teams' draft boards as opposed to the consensus. JC Latham, right tackle out of Alabama. There are some concerns that he is just a right tackle, which is surprising when you think about teams in the top 10 bringing him in for a top 30 visit or looking for him. He's got 4 top 10 teams hosting top 30 visits for him. That's a mouthful to say. Hosting him this week as we prepare for the draft. Really big guy, an aggressive run blocker. Definitely fits the prototype of a size that you want from a guy, but just something to keep an eye on if you're just a fan of the draft. This guy might go a lot higher than most of us expect. So that would be something to keep an eye on. Jets obviously being a team that's taking a look at him. Some people think he could be a guard too. He's one of those where you're like, arms might not be long enough to be a tackle, but he might not be, you might start him off as a guard, kick him out to right tackle eventually. He's not really a Troy Fautanu where you're like, oh, he can start day one at guard or tackle, but like more, he'll find something. At worst, he's
Yeah.
just a good guard. If his development plan works out, then he's your tackle. So one of those type of guys. Jets bringing him in. And then Tez Walker, wide receiver out of North Carolina, mostly projected to be a late day 2, early day 3 pick. He missed 8 games this past season because he was waiting on a transfer waiver that the NCAA was just fucking him with. Comes back to North Carolina halfway through the season, and their numbers took off the charts. Drake May looks so much better with him in the offense. So really exciting prospect there out of North Carolina. Any other names that I'm missing? like I said,
No, I think you
we'll
nailed
eventually
them.
switch to I guess we can go right into it because I believe that's all the ones that I've got here, but more just in the trenches, wide receivers, that's, in corners, that's about it for the guys right now. Um, so last thing before we get to the mock draft simulations, again, go to the YouTube channel so you can catch all of this and just how we're going to be using the board. It's going to be way more interactive than your normal podcast. So if you have the chance to get over there. But Teddy, we're a week away and we're
Oh
starting
yeah.
to kind of become a little bit more concrete in both what we might want the Jets to do or what we think the Jets want to do. If those two match up, that's fantastic. We've gone back and forth a bunch. You have, I have. I change my mind every week on where I want the Jets to go. As we really round out draft season, do you have a comfortable verdict where you're like, this is it. I believe it. I want it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think definitely you think about all the different options here, and I think the big three are, drafting wide receiver, probably Romo Dunze by a lot of people just like mock drafts or whatever, drafting Brock Bowers, or drafting an offensive lineman, right? Like those are kind of like the three avenues that we can see them going with this first pick. And very much of the offseason, I have been kind of like, whatever they decide out of those, I'm kind of okay. The more that I think about it, and we're here on April 16th, and when I look at the roster as it stands, I still just really think that they're a big weakness that we have on our team potentially is still our wide receiver room. And, signing Mike Williams was a great way to address that, but there still is just, he's not for sure going to be back week one. He's going to be coming off an injury. You don't know exactly when he's going to be ready. And, I just keep thinking about going out there week one and seeing Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard as our starting 1 and 2 wide
Mm-hmm.
receivers. And then, fill in the blank for that third guy, whether it would be a rookie or, that we got a couple picks later, or, a Xavier Gibson or something like that. Like that just does not give me confidence. And, you know, for me, in terms of what do I personally want the Jets to do, I really think I have decided that wide receiver is the way for them to go with this number 10 pick, whether it's trading up or trading back a little bit or just staying right there. I just think it is the biggest still weakness on the team. And even with Mike Williams in consideration, to add a guy like a Romo Dunze at that pick, it just gives me so much more confidence than bumping down a tier and, maybe taking someone in the early second round if you get a pick, and just that guy kind of being like, all right, like let's hope he succeeds. I have so much more confidence just saying, go take this top guy, let him work, and really have three guys that you believe in and a guy that can potentially, fill in for Mike Williams before he's fully 100%.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. As far as you talk about like where we're going to enter this upcoming season, we know Tyron Smith is going to be ready as long as, he doesn't have any bumps along with training camp. Same to be said with Morgan Moses, same to be said with John Simpson. So all the additions that they have made along the offensive line, as it stands right now, are going to be ready for week one. Mike Williams, as you're saying, question mark, not totally sure. The options behind him, not ideal. Now, there are some names post free agency that you can go in to beef up the wide receiver room, but you still are, at the end of the day, going to be putting Alan Lazard outside opposite Garrett Wilson if Mike Williams is not ready and available for the start of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I
I got you
still though
speechless.
it's a tough battle because like if Roma Dunze is there at 10, I agree. That is to me a top 7 or 8 player for myself. That's great value, a premium position. Just go and take him. You have to worry about Chicago at 9. If there's teams, if you just want to throw ahead Arizona, New York, and Chicago to take the top 3 wide receivers, or hey, even a team trading above the Jets to grab that third wide receiver. Now you're missing out, and you don't want to take the wide receiver for Brian Thomas at pick 10. You'd much rather trade back at that point. So you do need the guy to be there, or you need to get aggressive and jump teams that might be taking him ahead of you. So there is that battle there. We just disagree a little bit on this. The more we get closer to draft season, I want a guy in the trenches. I want an offensive lineman. I have kind of gone away from the fact of Aaron Rodgers is going to make everybody better. And we said that last year, and then he went down after 4 snaps. But if he goes down after over 4 snaps this season as well, too, the head coach is gone, the GM is gone. We're picking number 1 overall and moving into this new era of New York Jets land if Aaron Rodgers goes down with an injury. If he is out there and he's a little bit older, so
we would not be picking number 1 overall, but let's just move on from there.
Right. If Aaron Rodgers goes down,
Tyrod.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, even worse then. You're sitting there with a new head coach, new GM, and you're picking 12. Not worst case scenario, probably worse than picking number 1 next year, even though it's not a QB heavy draft in 2025. I just come back to the fact that I think and it's maybe the more I just listen to other people talk about the Jets, when you talk about Joe Douglas and where he comes from, Baltimore, Philadelphia, they are all about building in the trenches, building for this year, but also the future, always making sure that you have depth along the offensive line because Aaron Rodgers is going to make wide receivers better, but he's not going to make the offensive line better. You know, I guess in a way he could by the way he gets the ball out quickly, but still you need that guarantee that he is going to be kept upright throughout the season, coming off an injury, being in his early 40s. Like there's no guarantee that those 5 guys will stay healthy. To me, if you're worried about Mike Williams in week 1, I'm worried about Tyrone Smith in week 15. Or John Simpson being good outside of Baltimore, or Morgan Moses even being a little bit healthier. He's a guy that'll gut it through, but he's also at a later stage of his career. Elijah Vera Tucker, a guy off 2 season-ending injuries. I have concerns about those guys being ready in week 14 and 15. So even though Mike Williams might not be ready in week 1, the Jets need to be worried about the playoffs this year. And to me, the best way to ensure getting into the playoffs this year is by having the best offensive line possible and depth behind that offensive line to refill any holes that are left by injuries or poor play. So as we round out draft season, I love the idea of Rome Odunze. I love Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. They are 3 of my top 7 players in this class. But you need to keep the quarterback upright and say that you can find a way to get back into round 2 or round 3 and you get another wide receiver. Like, I totally agree. Garrett Wilson and Rome Odunze is one of those like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins duos where you're like, holy shit, what a luxury that we have for these guys. But at the same time, the Bengals also have built a really strong offensive line to keep Joe Burrow upright, and even he got injured last year. So it's like you still need to be able to protect your quarterback, and I think the Jets value that too much, where I more so lean to the offensive line, to protecting your quarterback as opposed to giving him another weapon.
Yeah,
that was an all-time ramble. You had me stop. Because I think what it is I want a wide receiver. That's fun. That's exciting. Rome Odunze and Garrett Wilson is fucking awesome. Troy Fontenot is boring, but it gets the job done. It gets reassurances that this offensive line will be good in some fashion in December.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a super good point, and I think both, you look at both sides of the argument, and it just really does kind of like double down on the fact that both are very valid options to go to, because you can make the argument. And I'm happy that you went with this just so I can say it bothers the hell out of me when the narrative is like how could the who are trying to compete for a this year draft a guy at pick 10 who isn't going to start? Like, that just bothers me so much because it's so short-minded in thinking. And how many NFL seasons have we watched? How many team seasons are there? There's 32 teams a year. fucking offensive linemen always get injured. Every position always gets injured. Like injuries are a part of the game. So if the Jets do want to go to O-line and draft someone who's quote unquote not going to start, it's like that is still can still be such a valuable piece to your team. So I am definitely happy that you made that point.
And the thing is too is Fautanu, like I know they gave John Simpson a lot of money. He'll beat out John Simpson for the left guard position in week 1. So like I
Sure, that's a
understand.
valid point too.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we just paid this guy to now sit on our bench. But it's like,
Who gives a fuck? Yeah.
what have we watched through the
Build a
last few
great
years
team.
is you don't have a good offensive line and you don't have even the
Yeah.
guys that you've drafted that show things at different times. Mekhi Becton showed promise. Elijah Vera Tucker has shown a lot of promise, but they've also been so up and down that you can't just hang your hat on, oh, we had these young draft picks we invested in that now kind of are questions because of injury or
Yeah.
performance. Like Mekhi's gone, so we don't have to worry about that as much. But AVT, we can't hang our hat on and be like, oh, AVT is the bright young guy on this offensive line, because until he can show us a 17-game season,
Yeah, we need him to
we
stay
have
in.
to assume that he is going to be up and down. So yeah, wide receiver is a really nice luxury. And I think for a team like Chicago, who has their starting five, and that's a good mix of young guys and veterans, I can understand them going wide receiver, especially after going quarterback at pick 1. But for the Jets, where they stand at, I'd be worried about our 30-plus-year-old tackles and John Simpson, who kind of reminds
Yeah.
us of
No,
Lakin and
very fair.
AVT off an injury. So I I'm not going to be mad either way. That's what I think we
I
both can agree on.
Yes, this is a funny conversation though because down today, Bird and I said, I'm pretty sure I have my personal opinion on what I think the Jets should, what I hope that the Jets do. What's funny is, probably the most realistic thing that they do, and what everyone has been predicting the most, and I feel like is really gaining a lot of steam,
It is.
these past couple weeks, is the fact that they're going to stay there at 10 and they're going to take Brock Bowers. Now, I'm not the idea of taking a tight end this high, I don't love, just because it has happened so scarcely in the NFL. There's not a lot of guys that you can kind of point to and say, okay, well, how did it work out for this team? Because there's really only been like 4 or 5 guys taken in the top 10. I hope that's an accurate number. I know it's not a lot, but Brock Bowers does seem like the most likely pick to me at this point. He's, the most commonly projected, the most commonly taken there in mock drafts. And like I said at the beginning, I am fine with that scenario. If they want to add a pass catcher, if they want to, be able to run 12 personnel and all these things, like I'm okay with it if that's where they go. But I probably would more so lean the other two scenarios that we just discussed. But it's just funny because if you put a gun in my head right now and said, what are the Jets going to do? I would say they're going to take Brock Bowers there at 10.
I just pray to God it's a trade back scenario for Brock. To me, the closer we get, like, I don't think you need to take him at 10. I think he's a guy that could fall to the mid to late teens at this point. And if he gets taken before you and you traded back to accumulate some picks and you're like, yeah, maybe if Brock is there at 16, we can go and get him because we added a second round pick trading back for a team that needed to move up to 10. And then you lose him. And it's like, okay, well, there's still a ton of good wide receivers to take and a ton of good offensive linemen available. So at least to me, I don't like the idea of staying at 10 and picking Brock Bowers. It is so rare for tight ends to hit their stride in their rookie season. Now, we saw it this past year twice with Sam Laporta, who was fantastic, and Dalton Kincaid really came along as the season went on as well, too. First half was kind of like a slow build, and then he became a reliable target for that offense in Buffalo. But before that, guys kind of take 2 to 3 years to really figure it out. Now, Brock is that unbelievable prospect that goes back to Kyle Pitts, where you're like, oh, we're going to take this guy, he's a top 5 player in the class. You got to take him in the top 10, top 15. But even Kyle, to a degree, like we're still waiting for him to turn things on. There's Hawkinson took a while, Gronkowski took a little bit, and these were guys, Kelsey, Kittle, they were taken late, and even they took a few years to really get going. So the tight end transition to the NFL is tough. You need to have a very specific and thought out role for them. And I don't know if Nathaniel Hackett is capable of that. I'm just going to say it. When we think of the guys that have figured out with these tight ends early on in their careers, Ben Johnson figured it out for Sam Laporta last year, and it was a seamless transition. Ben Johnson is one of the smartest minds in football. You think of all the other best tight ends in the game right now. What do they have in common? Fantastic play callers. They've got Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, Andy Reid in Kansas City. You've got Hawkinson, got Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Like they all have kind of their paired ones. So then to admit that and understand that it is a risk and not a guarantee by any means that Brock Bowers is ready to hit things off year one. And then two, I don't know if there's a creative mind in the offensive coaching staff to get him involved. I'm worried that it's not a wasted pick, but a pick that will not see its heyday until a new regime is in.
Yeah, definitely possible. My only and I don't disagree with you, that's why I'm hesitant to draft tight ends, especially, the fact that they take a little bit to kind of hit, and there's you just look at, okay, the top tight ends I can think of off the top of my head are Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, right? Guys taken in the first round, top 10 picks. Neither of them are really game breakers yet. Kyle Pitts, you can maybe blame Arthur Smith and that offense and his quarterback play, but he hasn't really seemed like a guy to take that next step. My only kind of like pushback on that sentiment that I try to remind myself is, there's only been 2, 3, 4 guys that have really had the pedigree to be taken that
Yeah.
high. And when you're thinking about a sample size like that, it's like really anything could happen to any of them for sure. And like we like to do as Jets fans, you hope Aaron Rodgers would be able
Right.
to, do some things with the tight end.
Definitely.
I believe he's used his tight ends in the past. So yeah, I do think it's interesting. I've heard, and this could be something I heard once that maybe isn't necessarily true anymore, but I had heard that potentially like Brock Bowers is this weird prospect because in order for someone to take a tight end, obviously there has to be this mixture of like confidence at other positions, somewhat need at tight end. You want to take the swing at that guy. I had seen potentially that it's like he could, go highly. He could potentially go to the Jets at 10. But if he's not, then all of a sudden he might go like 24th, 25th, 26th, and
Yeah.
like when you say things like that, that does make you think like, all right, well, if you want him, trade back and get a haul for him, and that's if that's an option, it's always going to be the better option, right? If you can take a
Yeah.
guy or accumulate picks and take that same guy, like sign me up, obviously, but it just comes down to, how badly do you want him and do you trust? And again, this is just like gun to my head. If I had to say what I thought the Jets were going to do, Brock Bowers seems like a pretty clear answer at this point.
And I want to be fair as well too, because I sounded like I was really knocking the idea. He's my like number 6th or 7th overall player in this class. I have him graded higher than Rome Odunze. Yeah, he's number 6, just behind a couple of quarterbacks, wide receivers, and a tackle. So like I do think the world of Brock Bowers as a prospect. He's basically to me just like uh his work in the slot, his route running skills, ability to make stuff happen after the catch. He's got a great sense of zone coverages as well too. He just finds a way to get open. So that is a reliable target for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, where you can just kind of put him in the trust tree pretty quickly and know that he'll kind of like how Travis Kelce does. If the first play isn't there, he kind of just finds a way to get open for play number 2
Yeah,
if
you
you
find
buy
those
Aaron Rodgers some
pockets.
time. Exactly. So he is a guy that I think is I do think the world of him. I just worry about the risk. I'd rather another team take him at 12 or 13 let someone else make that mistake of taking a tight end in a top 12 class where we've talked all draft season about how this is the best tackle or offensive line group of the last decade and the wide receiver class is the best of the last decade. Like, let another team take a non-premium position like tight end there. You could look at him as a wide receiver just because of his ability, but I don't know. 10's a little rich for my blood, but you're right. It is getting a lot of buzz. Peter Schrager had it in his mock draft today. He's very tapped in. Only does 2 mock drafts all year, and his next one will be out next week. So it'll be interesting to see if he stays there. But you are right about him, where he's like, if he doesn't, the run for Brock Bowers starts at 10, but it could end at like 23 with whoever Minnesota makes a trade with, essentially. Or if someone moves back, if Denver slides back into the 20s, they could take him. There's a big range on a guy like Brock, which is funny because, he's a consensus top 5, 6, 7-ish player in this class.
Yeah, it's where positional value comes into play.
Exactly.
I mean, you got me buzzing. Like, do we have more to cover, or do you think we should dive in?
I think that's all, because now we can take all this.
I want the draft to be this second. I want the draft to be right now because I need to know what's going to happen.
We can take all of this talk and just go work the trade and work the draft ourselves. So if you're watching on YouTube, I am going to try, and I usually feel like I'm very tech savvy, but something today just makes me feel a little bit old. But sharing the screen up here, we're using PFF's mock draft simulator. We are going to take things a little bit slow here at the top. We'll buzz through the later rounds a little bit quicker just because in this first one, we are not going to look at trading back. We are going to look at moving up or staying at 10 and taking a guy and then filling out those later rounds. We'll be very honest. And Teddy probably a little bit higher on than me. When we get to picks 185, 256, and 257, the fuck do I know? I am just going to say this is a position. We'll take a guy and we'll say, see you tomorrow. To me,
and
go ahead.
No, I was just, it's like, especially in like a mock draft scenario, but also just like, I'm not like you doing my own research on 250 different players or whatever. But when you get into those later rounds, that is where you can really utilize, what were the top 30 visits? What are people saying? Who are people connecting dots to with the Jets? Like, obviously it all comes down to who's going to be available, who's in the moment. We obviously don't know their whole board, blah, blah, blah. But there are always a couple of guys on this top 30 list who get picked, right? And there is opportunity there. So that's where I think we can try to do some things. But yeah, I'm with Blake. Like, once we get into the 5th round, you pick anyone. I'm in.
Yep,
oh
exactly.
Yeah, the Jets picked that guy. That guy's
cool,
good.
sick. He's gonna be awesome. Izzy Abanikanda, round 7
super sneaky pick.
Yeah. I really like what they did there. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get this one started, because we've discussed we're at least staying at 10, if not moving up. How high in this are you comfortable moving up for a wide receiver? Are you comfortable going to 6, 7? Would you rather just like wait to 8 and guarantee we get one of the top 3? Take me through your thought process on that.
Yeah. I mean, my general thought process is wait until 2 have been taken, essentially, right? And then start thinking about it. So, would I like the Jets to trade up to 5 and draft Malik Nabers in some universe? Like, yeah, sure, that would be great. I don't know if I'm going to love the capital that you have to give up to get there. That's a big jump compared to a 10 to 8 type of thing. So yeah, I think it depends on where they go, but I'm personally going into this, I'm more so thinking about, okay, Nabers is going to get picked. Then what do we think about, do we need to jump up to get Rome? Right. And, go from there.
Perfect. I'm of the same mindset. I think I feel comfortable about how the top 7 usually goes, or how it might go. So to me, 8 in Atlanta is really the trade part I'm looking at. So let's hit start.
My expected pause point is going to be, we're going to get to pick 7. We're going to hit pause, and we're going to have some things to talk about.
Try and talk about a trade to 8. Perfect. Let's do it. All right, let's get started on here. We're moving a little bit slower on it so we can talk through. Obviously, 1 goes Caleb Williams. Number 2, Drake May. What I would do Jaden Daniels stays
Interesting.
at 3 to New
I
England. It
wouldn't
should
say
be
that's
Marv.
consensus.
There's
There goes
Marv.
Marvin Harrison to the. All right, so Malik Neighbors taken right there at 5. JJ McCarthy goes next to the Giants at 6. So now we have the Titans on the clock at 7.
I feel comfortable, and unless this mock draft is going to fuck with us, that they go offensive tackle. They spent a ton of money in free agency on wide receiver. They go get Calvin Ridley. They signed Tony Pollard. Like they've
Did they
added
sign Calvin
playmakers
Ridley?
around this. Yeah, yep.
All
So
right,
they bring
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Calvin. They signed Tony Pollard.
Traylon Burks
They've
is a
got
person who
DeAndre
exists.
Hopkins is still there as well too. I think that they're gonna go Joe Alt here. If
Yeah.
they fucked us, they fucked us. But
Hey,
let's just see.
you gotta soak it.
Let's see. They didn't
Joe
fuck
Alt,
us.
there he goes.
All right. So we're sitting here, pick 8. Now, if we were trading up for a quarterback, we'd have to pay a quarterback tax on this. I am going to get over to the trade value chart that is offered by drafttech.com. It is the classic Jimmy Johnson valuation model. There's 3 or 4 different trade value charts throughout the world. I don't know which one is best or which one is most accurate, but it says to get from 10 to 8, you would most likely have to just give up pick 10 and then 111 this year, or you could probably get away with a third next year. And if we hit that one,
Real quick here,
yeah.
I just want to take a quick pause.
Yeah.
So we're here with the Falcons and the Bears picking ahead of us, right? So the idea is we don't really think the Falcons are going to be in play for a receiver. Obviously they could, but that's not the expectation. The expectation, though, is that the Bears at 9 could potentially pick Rome. So that's why we're looking to jump up here to potentially trade with the Falcons.
Oh, yes.
Now, what's
we should have said
interesting,
that.
so what you just presented to me was to jump from 10 to 8, we would give up a pick number 10 and the 111 this year, or potentially a third next year.
It apparently looks like PFF doesn't think it'll be that
too
hard.
Quickly about this before we started recording, but just to take a look, a little bit different, but in 2021, the Eagles traded the number 12 pick and the number 84 pick. So that's a third rounder, but much higher up than 111 in order to get pick 10 to select Devonta Smith. So I do just, I don't know necessarily if a first and a third will get us there in real life.
Right.
We can obviously try it. But let's just, look at that.
Exactly.
A third next year.
You click
and
a
the
third
trade will
next
likely
year.
be accepted.
You even click a fourth and it looks like it's got a 93% chance. So for the sake of Joe Douglas just working the tables, let's do this. Do you want to make this trade?
Well,
Is this valuable enough for you
so
to
that's
go
what I
get
wanna
Rome
talk about.
Odunze?
Yes, for me, yes. This is, and even a third next year would be something I'd be willing to do. Pick 111 this year, I wouldn't love, along with obviously 72. I just think we still have places on this team we need to address, and accumulating picks is more important than, it's something that we need to get done kind of regardless of if we do it at 10, in my opinion. So yeah, but for me, the options here really are, trade up to try to get Rome, which I think we have to do if we want him. We can stay at 10, and then we're sitting there and we're thinking, okay, do we take Fashanu, the other guy, Fawata, something like that?
Yeah.
Do we take one of those
Taliese
linemen?
Yeah.
Or, do we take Brock Bowers? And so we obviously just had this whole discussion and discourse. Doesn't seem like we really would love that Brock Bowers pick at 10. I'd probably be a little bit more okay with it than you. And in my opinion, if we were going to draft no lineman, especially with only Joe Alt off the board, I would prefer to move back a little, which we're not looking to do here.
Right.
So I think we go ahead and make this deal.
Yep, yeah. We are going to be taking a look in the next mock draft simulator right as we finish this one of just how we would move back and address depth at a second round pick. But for here, staying at 10, if you're staying at 10, it's either Brock, the next offensive lineman, or you move up to get Rome Odunze. I am on board here, especially not having to give up too much. Around 4 next year looks like it'll get done. So we are going to offer this trade,
Yeah, I mean,
and it
if
was
this was
accepted.
truly going to be accepted, I would do this in a heartbeat, like
Yeah,
a
I don't
fourth
think it's
next
good.
year.
But think about it. For Atlanta, that's the only
You're not
thing that
losing out on
Atlanta has to
anything.
risk. What they would have to risk is that Chicago turns and says, well, we're going to take Dallas Turner away from Atlanta. We're going to take the edge rusher that you wanted. But to me, Atlanta might be looking where Dallas Turner or Quinyon Mitchell are going to be their top two options. So I think they could look at this and say, if they view Dallas Turner and Quinyon Mitchell as their top two prospects, which I think it's got to be that in some order, you can say, okay, we're going to pick up a pick next year. We're going to just get one of our top two defensive players, and it didn't really hurt us all that much. Now, if they view Dallas Turner up at 5 and Quinyon Mitchell all the way down at, 14, then it's a little bit of a risk. But I think Atlanta would definitely listen to this offer because it's not like they're moving back to 25. They're staying right there at 10 and getting an impact player. So the trade
Sure.
went through. So now you want to take Brock Bowers here at 8, right?
Yes, that's why.
Okay,
No,
great. All
I
right,
say we
no,
take Rome,
let's
get
take
it done.
Rome, get him in. Welcome to New York, Roma Dunze. All right, now
That just feels
let's
great.
speed this up
Yeah, I think we
because
can. I mean, in
we
my
are gonna
opinion,
wait.
from here, we can jump ahead to 72 and see who's available,
Exactly.
right? We're not going
Exactly.
to go over every pick. Um,
And here we are at pick 72. All right.
all right.
So,
So let's take a look at some of these positions
well,
here.
so let me talk to you about this. So, you've now addressed wide receiver. So we've got that taken off the board. We will not probably address playmaker unless we take a flyer on a random guy later on. Do you immediately then go to the offensive line, or are you of the growing opinion that if the right edge rusher is here, that should be a guy we look at?
No, I'm looking to the offensive line. I can acknowledge in a similar way to most of the positions on the Jets that our edge room, like everywhere else, could use some depth, could use some shoring up. Doesn't need starters necessarily, but needs just some depth that could potentially grow into something. But when I look at the ends we have with Jermaine Johnson and Hassan Reddick and Will McDonald and JFM paired with the D lineman we have, adding another guy there just is nowhere close to a need the same way that I think just continuing to fill up this backup offensive line, you know, is. So for me, it's all offensive line here.
Yeah, and if you take a look, there's still some decent, at least in my opinion, edge rushers available where you could maybe get another guy at 111. So, we've got the list up here of tackles, offensive linemen, edge rushers. I'm going to take edge off for now because unless a guy like Chop Robinson somehow falls, like if there's a big medical question or he gets, arrested tomorrow when the show comes out, he's going to be gone in the top 50. That's kind of the edge gap for me where it's like, okay, you're kind of going to be taking a shot on someone else. But you're right, it's more shoring up the offensive line here. I'll give you a few names as I scroll through here. At tackle, it's to me Blake Fisher, Dominic Pooney out of Kansas, and then I think I just saw it down here as well too. Nope, it doesn't. Oh yeah, no, that's somebody else. So those are my top two tackle guys. If you wanted to go to the interior, I like Cedric Van Pran. But my number 3 guard, and it looks like he might be available later. I'm a big Zach Zinner guy from Michigan. Now, there is a big issue where he was that guy that had the really gruesome injury in the Ohio State game, if you remembered that late on in the
Oh,
game.
Jesus.
So
Yeah, yeah.
he's going to be out for a little bit, and you probably aren't getting him ready at the start of the season. So as much as I like him, I think he's my number 3rd ranked interior offensive lineman. You're probably waiting a little bit for him to get back onto the field. So I mean, my top overall guy is Blake Fisher. Mason McCormick is another guy that I don't think gets enough love, so I'll just mention him right now out of South Dakota State. FCS doesn't get a ton of talent into the pros, early on in the draft, but he's another guy there. I know I'm just throwing random names out to you. Do you just want me to pick one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in on Blake Fisher. My only real thought on these linemen is based on the work that the Jets have done so far. I think that versatility is going to be potentially a deciding factor if they're, between two close prospects. If there's a guy who can play both guard and tackle, I think they would lean that way. But if, in your opinion, here, Blake Fisher is the, best guy, I think, that's our clear course of action. I think addressing a line here should be the play. So I'm definitely in on that.
All right, let's make it Blake Fisher then. Welcome to New York. Tackle out of Notre Dame. They always do a great job along the offensive line. Ton of guys in the pros these
Yeah.
days from Notre Dame. So he's here. We now quickly jump to, I believe, if it'll let me. Why is it taking forever to draft Blake Fisher? There we go.
It'll be
We
all
are
right.
all the way down to pick 111. Now we can kind of just go wherever.
Let's check out our edge rushers.
Let's take a look at who's available. Okay, well, you know what?
Your boy's gone.
No, he's here. He's right here at the top.
Oh, all right. All right. Mohamed Kamara.
All right, so let's just talk through it. Mohamed Kamara, to me, is a more well-known Bryce Huff comparison. We talked about him last week. He's got the smaller frame, but well-proportioned out, shorter arms, but uses it to his advantage. He's hyperactive, great pass rush skills. Not going to be out there on first and second down early on in his career, but has the potential to get there. Really solid anchor. I'm a big Mo Kamara guy. He's been in for a top 30 visit. I
Yeah.
like him. I think he's a guy that just like I said, if the Jets will always in the Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas era just take in these random edge guys because if they hit, the defense is changed forever. So to me, it's not like I said, you're in round one taking Will McDonald's eventual replacement or Hassan Reddick's eventual replacement. You're here at the, early day 3 saying, we like this guy's traits. We like his work ethic. He resembles a guy that has succeeded well in this defense too. Why not do it?
Yeah, no, and to me this just really just continues to paint that picture, right? So, we talk about these Jets needs and they're all kind of like depth, right? Like potential fill-ins. And this is where, especially with this edge room, having a couple guys that you can rely on, taking a guy here that you like, that's a local kid, came in for a 30 visit, like in the third round, and a guy that you can hope can just be developed into being a great player, like it doesn't get better than that to me. And, right here in our top 111 picks, the Jets were able to, fill a need at receiver that they still have, get a tackle, get a lineman that can at least provide some depth behind these guys that you signed, and then potentially get an edge player that you're going to hope develop. So, like right there, that just gives me a little like sense of ease of kind of like, however we play this, we should be able to address these needs. So yeah, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, we see Mohamed Kamara here, who it looks like we're going to pick. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, also available, another guy that they brought in. I just wanted to point that out because they also
Yeah.
brought him in. But I'm fully with you here if you want to go ahead and make the pick.
And edge is where you would go before other positions, right? Because we know they've been looking at slot corners. We know they need some safety depth at some point. I know we didn't even mention that they brought back in, why can't I remember his name now, Teddy? Who did they sign right after we recorded last week? They always do this.
Ashton Davis.
Ashton
Shout
Davis is
out.
back in the fold as well, too. So that safety room is a little bit fuller than it was a week ago, but they have been looking at secondary. You would still say edge number 3 target here.
Yeah, I would think so. I think definitely at these points of the draft, like if there was a safety that they loved, and they wanted to take an edge later in the draft, like that would be fine with me. But if you're just asking me in a vacuum, what positions do I want the Jets to address? It goes, receiver and O lineman 1A, 1B, and then edge is my third.
Okay, perfect. We're on the same page with that. So let's just get it done. Let's take Mo Kamara, and then we'll talk about pick 134 in just a second.
Sure. You know what I like about what we did here?
What's up?
traded a future pick to get a better first round pick. So like for the sake of this mock draft, like we get all the same picks that we would have had, but
Yeah,
we just traded 10 for 8, like
exactly. Oh yeah,
what an awesome
I wasn't
time.
gonna give up one of these that we were gonna go through. No, no way. We're gonna,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
realistically, it probably would cost that at the end of the day. Um, all right, so we're here at 134. This is really where my range is like I recognize the names on the list. And then shortly after, when we get to 185, 256, and 257, I might not have a ton on here. So they've taken in and brought in some defensive tackles. I just saw one on the list that they had in for a top 30 visit here in Mason Smith, defensive tackle for LSU, which brings me to a great point. I just wanted to apologize to Mason Smith. Last week, I mocked him and I was like, don't even have him in my top 8. That was because he was defensive tackle number 9 on my
Damn.
preliminary profiles earlier this week. Go subscribe to the Spring Blake NFL Draft newsletter / guide. Full guide coming out next week. So Mason Smith, defensive tackle brought in from LSU, but we would also think right now the Jets D tackle group is pretty full. We could look at corner. We could look at safety. We could look at tight end. If they don't go Brock Bowers in the first round, why not get a value guy here? They did let go of CJ Uzoma. The rest of the guys outside of really God, I'm terrible with names today. Theodore. Who am I forgetting? Who's our starting tight end? Why am I drawing
Tyler
a
Conklin?
blank? Yes,
Sorry.
thank you. Tyler Conklin. Jeez, my brain
I
went
could have
to
jumped in
shit
earlier
there.
there. I was
Outside of
unsure
Conklin
who you
and
were asking
Rucker, you're
about.
like, okay, it's not the most full tight end room. Do you have a preference out of any of those positions? If I had to give you cornerback and mostly slot corner, and really, I don't think you even want slot corner just because you'd rather them just pay Michael Carter. So I'll throw that one as an option, even though you might not like it. Safety, defensive tackle, or tight end, or a mystery position. Is there something else we should be looking
Yeah,
at?
I mean, my mind goes to safety and tight end personally. I don't
I
know.
like it.
Just seems like they're going to draft a safety at some point. It could be in the third round. It could be later. Um, so yeah, I don't have a ton on these names, unfortunately. But safety
No,
and tight
you
end are where I lean. I
okay?
do think drafting a tight end, if you're not drafting Brock Bowers, get another guy late. Late tight ends can hit.
Mm-hmm.
Just hope he can develop with a Conklin with him.
Let me pull up
But
my
yeah, I
tight
mean,
end rankings.
here
I don't hate the
I'm
idea
really
of going tight
okay
end.
with anything. I'll take Theo out of Penn State, Theo Johnson. Um,
Your nickname is Theo.
yeah, man, that's true.
Maybe
That's
we just
true.
make that happen. So Theo Johnson, I have as my tight end. I'm pulling up my tight end rankings right now. I should have these ready. Theo Johnson was my tight end number 8. Other guys available that I have just a little bit above him include man, is he really the top? Oh, Jaheim Bell, I have a little bit higher. Tip Ryman, one spot above him as well, too. So Jaheim Bell was my tight end 3. Let me see what the report I had on him was because this might be somewhere where we want to go.
Yeah, I mean, right there, I'm
Mismatch
in.
in the passing game, great speed, nightmare to bring down after the catch, forced to miss tackle in 1 out of every 3 plays during his career. Great catch point frame, does a good job boxing out defenders. He will not be a run blocking tight end, and he needs to refine his route running. So I have him as my third best tight end in this class just because of his freak of nature offensive talents. Will you allow me to override and just take him there because I have him significantly?
Yeah, let's rip. Let's
All right.
rip.
Yeah, I'm spending too much time on these. That was the last one. Let's
Yeah,
just have some
honestly,
fun here.
I say we rapid fire and then we get
Cool.
into starting again.
Do we need a punter
Um,
out of Iowa?
nah, we got our punter.
I'm gonna throw out Kamani Vidal, Troy running back, Sun Belt, fun guy.
Shout out the Sun Belt.
Jumped up into my top 5 for running backs in this class. What do you think? Do you think about depth at running back here in round 5 or 6?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere they could potentially go. We obviously have Abanaconda, but you're definitely not confident in, the backup behind Brees where we currently stand. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that the Jets, with Salah and Joe Douglas have taken a running back most years, maybe every year, if I'm remembering
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
So it does seem like they're content to just keep kind of firing away these fifth, sixth round picks and just hoping a guy sticks. With that said, I don't think Abanikon is necessarily bad. We just haven't gotten to see him, get reps meaningfully on the field. But I
All
do
right,
see a world where the Jets could go halfback here.
let's do it, and then I'm gonna throw. No, I'm gonna throw this out to you real quick.
Oh, where's our quarterbacks? Yeah,
That's
fuck
where I
dude.
just pulled up. So we missed out on some of the other guys that they've brought in. So we're basically right now looking at Sam Hartman and Joe Milton III, who's got a rock
Yeah,
of an arm, but is a little bit
I
older.
honestly kind of
We're
like
looking at
that. We should have looked
old,
last pick.
experienced. Yeah, we should have. Maybe we'll keep that in mind for mock draft simulator number 2, following
There
right
you
after
go.
this. So
We'll be a little quicker with that one
do you
too.
want do you want to take any of these guys? Do you want to do it
Yeah,
right
take
here
Joe
to make sure
Milton
we get him?
here.
All right, let's get a
Yeah.
cannon of an arm.
And then
And
let's
an
just
older guy as well too. So we don't have to really. I guess we could have taken Sam Hartman at 256. What a shame. You know
also
what? Let's
older
just.
guy.
Here's what we'll do. We'll go Sam Hartman at 256, and at
Oh, the
257,
kicker.
let's take
Tua.
Tua's brother.
All right, well there we go. I
Awesome. There's
love
our
it.
draft.
I love it, Blake.
I am gonna
I appreciate
download
that.
this just for the
Tweet that
fun of
out.
sharing it later.
Tweet that
I
out.
will, because that one's fun. All right.
People are gonna be looking at that. They'll be like, okay, all right. I kind of wait a
What
second.
the
What?
fuck?
Definitely tweet that out though. I do
Oh, we
hope
will.
some people are like,
Get real
what the? I
triggered
hope people
about it. What
believe
did they
it.
do?
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
I like it. All right. Let's get through and just rip right into this second one where we take a look at trade backs. We'll do
Yeah,
all
so
7
here we are
rounds.
specifically looking to trade back. So honestly, if you want to sim
can
the
just
first 9
speed.
picks, and
Yep.
then we can see who's available and start from there.
Perfect. I just did that. Look at that.
Let's
Roma
read through
Dunze
'em.
went 9 to the
Damn.
Chicago Bears. So quarterbacks, all about the same. Really, everything was the same here, except we didn't make the move up to go get Roma Dunze. Okay, so we're sitting here at 10.
Right. And this is kind of so just real quick, it's the exact same board. We didn't make the pick up to 8, but so then the Falcons go ahead and take Dallas Turner, the edge, clear cut number 1 edge in this draft, it seems. And then there goes Chicago taking Rome. So yeah, kind of exactly what we thought was going to happen.
Exactly. So you're sitting here at 10. Basically, all the offensive linemen are available. Brock Bowers is available. Really, wide receiver to me is a little too early for Brian Thomas Jr. just after taking 3 in the first 9. So how far back realistically? Because let's take a look real quick. If we wanted to net a 2nd round pick, say that we bring the Colts in town and they want to go up and trade for Brock Bowers, can we get 15 and 46? Not likely. So how far are you willing to go back if it guarantees you a 2nd round pick?
Yeah, I mean, so this is interesting because I do think that the goal here should be, to trade back and still try to get one of these top linemen.
Mm-hmm.
You just brought it up. Cincinnati Bengals pick 18. That's kind of like that number, right? Because I kind of think 14, 15, pretty close to 12. You're really not going to get there without a couple, at least, 1 or 2 of those offensive linemen still available. There's also that possibility that you move back and Brock is available. So 18 was kind of what jumped out. So I would be fine with this deal. I see right now we have the 10th pick for the Bengals, 18, 49, and 97. They do have a plethora of picks. Would the Bengals want to trade up to 10?
So the one thing on the Bengals right now is they are either looking. There's 3 ways that they can go, and sitting at 18 is very different than sitting at 10, but they are very interested in the tackle market. They're another team that met with J.C. Latham out of Alabama, has met with Mims, all the top tackle prospects. They are also a team that's been connected to with Brock Bowers, and that's kind of a pseudo move with eventually trading T. Higgins as well. So you're maybe saying, okay, if you trade up and get Brock Bowers, yeah, they don't fit the same role, but you're adding in a younger playmaker on a rookie deal for a playmaker that needs a contract extension that you don't seem willing to pay. So tight end, offensive tackle, or Byron Murphy Jr., defensive tackle out of Texas, seems to be 3 guys that all could be wanted here at 10, or could be taken here at 10. So they have enough picks, like you said. They've still got 80, 115, 149, 194, 214, 224, 237. They have enough depth especially in these middle rounds where we could sneak by giving up 10, but getting an 18, 49, you know, 115 probably is more likely to be accepted, but it seems like
I
even
say we try the
97.
97, and
Yeah.
then if it gets denied, we go to 115.
And look at that. We would just add in two great picks, two great
Yeah,
depth
and
picks
that
as
it
well
adds
too.
in a pick between our first rounder and 72, adds in a pick between 72 and 111, instantly gives you so many more darts to throw. I mean, this would be an unbelievable deal if they were able to get it done.
Let's do it.
All
Accepted.
right.
Look at that. All right, so we're
So
gonna
let's
sim
see
up to
who
18
falls to us.
and we'll see where the board goes. So it
Oh,
looks like
so Brock.
the Bengals did trade up for Brock Bowers, took him at 10. Quinyon Mitchell went 11 to Minnesota, which is fine. We didn't need a corner. Fashanu, Fuaga, JC Latham, and Troy Fautanu
Oh,
have all gone.
I mean, so this hurts, right? Like, and to me,
This is where it gets
this is
risky.
almost right. So, and that kind of puts 18 as a number to watch to me, honestly. Because yeah, Fuaga and Fashanu both went above who I believe our number one preferred alignment, which is Fatanu, and he went one pick before us, right?
Yeah.
So that's tough. And now we're sitting here at 18. Where did the Jets go? What is the thought here? You know, next best offensive lineman, Amarius Mims out of Georgia. Um, Receiver, I mean, are you thinking about Brian Thomas? Are you thinking about anyone else? You know, is an Adonai Mitchell on your mind at all? Um,
Yeah. To me,
are there
Adonai.
edges they would take here? Like I honestly, this is putting my mind in a
Mm,
pretzel.
well,
Joe Douglas is going to be freaking out. He better
he's
have a plan because I
he's
sure as hell
calling
don't have
every
one.
team. He doesn't have a plan for this. So here's where I land. Mims to me is the best overall player available, but he is purely a tackle, and that is a spot where I can question him being on the field in year one, or at least day one, year one. Now, he is great assurance for the future right or left tackle. He's a mammoth of a man. I really do love his upside. And he probably could benefit from a year as a backup. He truly is one of those guys where you're like, didn't get enough reps, probably needs a year or two to develop to really become reach his top potential. Graham Barton has been one of the highest risers for me, and he is a guy that played tackle all throughout college at Duke, but is most likely going to be a guard in the NFL. He can play all five positions. So if we wanted Troy
It's a guy
Fautanu
that sticks
light,
out to me then.
Graham Barton is the guy, and he's a guy that I believe in my last mock draft had him going 16 to the Seahawks. So I think his value is up, up, and up. So he's a guy that I'm
Sure.
going to say, like, let's just keep our eyes on with him. Wide receiver, to me, the next guy is Brian Thomas Jr. He is a healthier, younger Christian Watson. Christian Watson, he spent at least a year with Aaron Rodgers, correct? 2 years. He's been so
Yeah.
injured. It's tough to remember when he really came out. But to me, I almost worry that like he is going to offer a lot of the same stuff that Mike Williams does. He's explosive. So it's not like it's a knock on him. He is one of my favorite players in the class. I believe I have him ranked 11th overall. So to me, I am either team Graham Barton and we just do the same thing that we thought with Fautanu here, or we go Brian Thomas Jr. and we get that Mike Williams insurance. Where do you lean?
Yeah, I like both options. I will say I'm just nervous for Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah,
And you know, to be honest, it's not based in much. I think the only thing that worries me is he does seem to be a little bit more of like a I don't want to say like a one-trick pony, but a guy who does what he does, right? Which is getting down the field, which is making big plays. Um, I just worry about like the hit rate of a guy like that.
fair.
And you know, so it's like, would I hate the pick? No, but I would probably lean Graham Barton and then
Cool.
try to get one of those more second round receivers later. But honestly, I could be convinced either way.
I think down here is not too high of a reach for Graham Barton, and people might hear this and say, whoa, above Jackson Powers Johnson. Like the consensus has become that Graham Barton is the top interior like center guard prospect outside of Fautanu, who really is more guard tackle. But Graham Barton can do all 5 positions, probably will still contend in the rookie season to start over John Simpson. So you're getting a guy that can do it all. You're still adding to the offensive line, a case that I desperately pleaded for at the beginning of this podcast. So let's go and make Graham Barton, and we'll try and attack wide
Let's
receiver
do
at
it.
49.
Hell
Graham
yeah.
Barton, welcome to the Jets. All right, so we have now gone all the way to pick 49. Let's just take a look at some wide receivers that have gone since we last were on the board. So Brian Thomas Jr. went shortly after to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have also lost A.D. Mitchell to the Buffalo Bills.
A.D. Mitchell to the
Xavier
Bills
Worthy.
skyrockets him up fantasy boards
Yep.
right
Oh
there.
yeah. Yeah.
I
I
already
saw
like him a lot. That'd be big.
someone. I was watching a mock draft. Shout out that franchise guy, I believe is the name he goes by. He was like, I'm drafting A.D. Mitchell to the Bills simply over the fear of what he will become on the Kansas City Chiefs. So he was like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
take him so Kansas City doesn't.
I don't
So
think it'll be all
Xavier,
that different, but yeah,
yeah.
I really like him a lot.
Oh no, I mean different as in like Buffalo doesn't want Kansas City to get A.D. Mitchell,
Oh,
basically.
sure,
It
sure,
was what
sure.
the
Yeah,
joke
yeah,
he was
yeah.
making. Xavier Worthy, the track athlete, goes to Baltimore, and then a little bit of a run here. This is an interesting one. Arizona goes wide receiver, taking Lad McConkey with the 35th overall pick. Jalen
Like it.
Polk, Xavier Legette, Troy Franklin, all off the board. We are losing receivers left and right. As we sit here at pick 49, we've got Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Malachi Corley, Jermaine Burton, Devontae Walker. Oh, man, I don't even really
Yeah, I
love
mean,
how this one worked out either. But talk me through your thought
really?
process.
See,
And
yeah, I mean,
while you say this, I am going to mute myself and plug in my computer. So
sure,
talk
go
for a little
ahead.
bit while I do that.
No, yeah, it's interesting that you are not excited because to me, I see this list and I see a lot of, potential guys that I would like to have. Keon Coleman out of Florida State, I think could be with a pick like this where, we're picking in the second round, really want that guy who can fill out your wide receiver room, really dominate the slot role, but obviously have versatility to play anywhere. But when I see Keon Coleman, when I see Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Devontae Walker, there were a couple other names, Blake as he's frantically looking for his charger. Um, but to me, there does seem to be a lot of receivers who I would be happy here. Javon Baker out of UCF is a guy I like a lot. Jalen McMillan out of Washington is a guy I like a lot. So to me, obviously some of these guys that went higher in the second round, you'd prefer to have, but to me, I mean, taking a Roman Wilson, a Keon Coleman here, or even some of these low ranked guys, I really don't hate that at all. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want to go too far down because you do still have the option at 72. But for me, any of these top 3 guys, even throw in Malachi Corley, who I don't hate, I'm fine with any of them. To me, I think Roman Wilson would be my pick here just because of the connection to the Jets. It seems like they've showed interest.
Yeah.
That's who I would lean. I like Keon Coleman a lot too, though. So really, for me, it's between them.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Roman Wilson fits a very specific role in this offense, will slide in and be a slot wide receiver. So it's on one hand, you're like, yeah, we're drafting a slot wide receiver in the second round, but he's a good one at that. It's betting on any Michigan playmaker is so tough for this draft because they really were just like not used until absolutely
Yeah.
needed. But when absolutely needed, they showed up more often than not. You think about that great catch that he had in the Ohio State game that I think went for the touchdown, the game sealing one. But either way, yeah, Roman, I'm good with. I do like Ricky Pearsall. I think he's a fun guy. Malachi
I
Corley is
like him
probably
too.
one of the more dangerous wide receivers after the catch, so he's really fun. Let me take a look at my rankings right now. I guess my top guy available is actually. So I do have Ricky Pearsall pretty high.
Yeah, I like him too. I didn't say him in my 2, but I would be open to him as well here.
Let me take a look on what I had with Ricky, and I don't mean to take up too much of your time or everybody's time here, but I just trying to remember. There's so many wide receivers in this class. Great route runner, most common is a Jerry Judy type. So another guy that you could really put on the inside. I
All of
will.
these guys really have that like prototype that we're looking at, it
Yeah,
seems, which
I
kind of works
will.
out for the Jets.
I will let you override because I've overridden a few picks here. I will let you say Roman Wilson, but if not, I will go Ricky Pearsall.
No, let's go with Ricky because honestly, I have such an anti-Michigan bias. Like even
Perfect.
saying I was okay with Roman Wilson is like a little bit of a concession.
Great.
So yeah, I like Ricky.
Ricky Pearsall, welcome to New York. All right, the fun part of this, we now jump down to 72, and we have already addressed our tackle, or I guess interior slash tackle and wide receiver here. So do you want to go back to edge, or should we look at some of the top names available? I mean, we've never talked
Yeah, I mean,
linebacker
this is
really.
interesting. Now all of a sudden we have a lot of picks, right? 72, 97, 111. Um, that would be a dream scenario because it really does feel like we could just dart throw, dart throw, dart throw. I mean, I'd probably look to lean to you on what you think here, but I think at this point with the draft capital we'd have, it's a lot of best player available. You know, who do the Jets have on their board that fill a need that's the highest up, you know? Um, I don't even know. Would you take a
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler here? Would you take
So
another wide receiver? I mean, they could really go anywhere.
I
Take a
was just gonna
tackle.
talk about quarterback, and I was like, it could be something where we wait till 97 and see who's around because we waited too long in the last draft that we did to really take a look at it. Do you hate the idea with all these picks saying 72, 97, 111? Do you hate the idea of doubling back in on the offensive line where you're like, okay,
No,
Graham
not at
Barton
all.
can play all
I
five, but
love
he's
that
best as
idea.
a guard? Or do we just go right back to the well with Blake Fisher and we say,
Yeah,
okay,
that's the
now we've
name I was
drafted
looking at
a
again,
tackle
honestly.
and guard, and now we've got a bench of prospects
Yeah.
potentially. All right, cool. Let's do that
And I
then.
think this just doubles down. Like, if you are able to trade back for a similar haul where you can add two picks in the top 100, I mean
Yeah,
it's easy. You know,
yeah.
it's like that is such an easy decision to
You
make.
have to do it.
So yeah,
Now, and you
go
would
ahead.
rather double up on offensive line before wide receiver, right? Just because there's not a ton of room in the wide receiver
Yeah,
group
you know,
right now.
I certainly wouldn't hate doubling up on wide receiver. I think that, you know, as excited as we want to be about a guy like Xavier Gibson, you know, I'm just not sold.
Yeah.
I think that we can still improve that room, and I don't think it's as good as people want to make it out to be. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think just adding linemen, especially this, you know, first, second, third round, fourth round, even a little. I feel like that's where a lot of these kind of just like hidden gem linemen can be found. So yeah, I love the idea of taking Blake Fisher here.
All right, let's do it. Blake Fisher doubled up in our mock draft simulators. All right, so let's get down to 97. Let's take a look here. So Spencer Rattler went. If we're
Show
taking
me
a
that
look at
quarterback list.
quarterback. So here's my thinking. I think we can get away going 97 somebody else.
I agree.
But 111
I think we're
or
too early.
134, we might want to look at Jordan Travis. Just out of like outside of Pratt and Travis, we are stuck at Milton range again too.
Yeah, and to me that is kind of the line, right? Like Jordan
Yes.
Travis, I can sell myself a little in on a little. Joe Milton, maybe, but you know, obviously there's no guarantee he'd be great, either of those guys, but Jordan Travis is kind of the guy I look to that I think, who do I want the Jets to draft? You know, he's kind of that number one option when it comes to quarterback. But I
Let
agree. I think we can
me
probably get him at 134.
Okay. All right. So let's
And I
take a
think
look.
that once we draft him, we should just draft quarterbacks to finish this one out. I think we should
I
crush the
agree.
next three picks
Um,
and then draft a bunch of quarterbacks.
do you have any interest in Tavondre Sweat?
I don't have any reason not to be interested. You tell me about him.
Well, you're not driving, I guess, in the streets of New York City, so I guess you don't have to worry about him drinking and driving.
Oh, is that okay?
So he was a projected second round pick and like the
Oh, honestly,
DT3
and he had a DUI.
a couple weeks ago and like was
All
a
right.
party animal in college, has some red flags. Maybe don't even have to take him at 97, but just want to have the conversation because I mean, I don't know. They could look at
Listen,
D tackle at some point.
the Jets have had their fair share of DUIs connections over the past few years. And, truthfully, I think that like a guy going through something like that and losing value, like it obviously sucks and you obviously want high character guys in your room, and I think the Jets do prioritize that. But if it's a guy who loves football, wants to play football, made a mistake, take the advantage of him falling due to something that's off the field. If you believe in the guy, go ahead and take him. I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, it's a long history of issues though. Like
Well,
his coaches have talked about how he's been a little bit of a rabble. What am I trying to say?
yeah. I mean, if it's like that,
He likes to
truthfully,
party. He likes to party.
yeah, well, who doesn't like to party?
I
But
know.
if it's the type of thing where he has been like a detriment to his teams, I truly think that he won't be on the Jets draft board. I think
That's a
they
good
value
point.
character and loving football so much that
Yeah.
he probably won't be.
I don't even know where I want to go with this pick, Theodore.
Let's take Brendan Rice. He's one of my favorites, Jerry Rice's
Yeah, you
son.
want to double up on ours here? We can get him later. I'm gonna go. Do you have a positional preference here? I can
Are
tell
are there
we're
safeties available?
I
Um,
like Kinchins is gonna go high as well too. I like Tyke Smith. He's actually one of my top three safeties in this class.
let's
Safety
take him.
reports out later in the week, by the way. Make sure to get corners and safeties, prelim profiles. I guess you're not missing much because the full ones will be out that following day. But Smith kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Antoine Winfield Jr. But I don't know. Let's do him.
Let's take him. Let's do
All
him.
right. Let's do him. All right. Pick 111. Did we miss out? I'm worried about missing out. We missed out on Michael Pratt. Okay, so no Michael Pratt. Can we
You're worried
wait on
about
Jordan
missing out on
Travis?
Travis?
Or
I'll
can
take
we
him
wait till
now.
134?
I think he'll be there at 134. I
All right, so let's
do.
wait. Let's wait. You know what I want to do then? Because I just in a world where we don't draft Muhammad Kamara twice, I'm going to be disappointed
All right. Okay. This is perfect. This is working
because
out
we
great
haven't
for
addressed
us.
edge yet.
Yep. Is
If
he
Jordan
there?
Travis went, that's going to be hilarious. Nope, he's there. All right, Jordan Travis is the pick. QB off the board. I
All
am
right,
going to
let's just
make
give a quick overview of the picks that we have so far. Unless you
what
have
we've
a guy you
done.
want here. Well, do you have a guy you want here?
I just want to we haven't spent any time talking about cornerback, and I just want to take a look at some of the guys that God, I guess there really isn't anybody here that they have taken a meeting with, but we do need to just acknowledge that they are poking around
Yeah.
at the slot corner market.
They're
So
going
I
to
at
address
least
these
wanted to
positions,
mention that.
We're
Yeah,
no pros.
exactly. So outside of that, the only other thing I'm going to check is if Mason Smith is available. He is not, so I'm all done. So yeah, do you want to? We can just sim through the rest of this
Yeah.
and
Or just draft quarterbacks.
settings. Nope, cancel. How do I finish this? This is good. I'll cut this so it goes by a little bit quicker.
That's good. I think you just got to draft.
I just got to pick somebody.
Yeah, so pick quarterbacks that we can tweet them out.
All right, Joe Milton. Let's go Sam Hartman.
You can see where we gave up on each mock draft.
Exactly.
Do we have the last two picks of the fucking draft,
Keaton
dude?
Slovis.
Yeah,
Yes.
pick Plummer.
Oh no, I like Slovis.
Oh, okay. I just didn't want you to pick what's his name again?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So to take a look at the second one up until the point that we gave up, we went Graham Barden with pick 18, Ricky Pearsall at 49, Blake Fisher at 72, Tyke Smith, safety out of Georgia at 97. Still went Muhammad Kamara at 111, and then we didn't care and took 4 QBs to finish off the
No,
draft.
no,
I
no,
think
no, no. Jordan Travis is in the care list.
right. To be fair, that is a guy that we should care about. And is a guy that look at how they graded out the end of this draft. D minus
I know.
F, D plus, D minus. That's hilarious. But I think the point of this exercise is to look if there is a trade where you can go and get a late teen first round pick, a second round pick, and hell, even something at the end of round 3, you go and do that deal because we have added an impact offensive lineman, whether he is competing for John Simpson, filling in for AVT at any point, potentially filling in for any tackle at a certain point. We've got Ricky Pearsall, really strong possession wide receiver. He'll be a friendly target for Aaron Rodgers in round 2. And we doubled in and got some tackle depth with Blake Fisher at 72 because we had the ability to do so. So, no, we didn't get Rome Odunze. No, we didn't go and get one of the top guys in this class, but you really can fill out depth at some of the strongest position groups in this class. And
Yeah.
it's an important exercise to look at because uh, you got to look at the opportunities here and say, okay, where can we really feel comfortable about the Jets after this draft?
Yeah. And this definitely has, leaned me a little bit to maybe more so want the trade back than I did before. Just because if you are able to add 2 picks in the second and third round or early fourth, that can be such a game-changing thing. With that said, though, we moved back to 18 and kind of all of those top guys on our list were immediately not available. So it's just that cutoff, right? And it's
Right.
okay, if you are looking to trade back, how far back are you willing to go?
Yeah.
And then it gets really, really interesting. But yeah, I mean, that was a blast. And next week we'll come out with an episode sometime.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. What do you think would be better for us to react to round 1 and put out a Friday
yeah,
pod? I
probably.
think this might be the last one
Probably.
we do until the draft because I mean, what else are we going to say? We've unless a trade happens in the meantime and the Jets make their move, we really just gave out our final
I'd
thoughts
rather
on what we
react to
want
the
the Jets to
draft
do.
than preview it
Exactly.
again. So
I
so
agree.
yeah, maybe Thursday late or something we'll
Yeah,
record, but we'll
hop
get
on.
something out next week. But yeah, I mean, fuck yeah, I'm amped for the draft. It's a
Yeah.
week away. Let's get it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Again, follow us on our socials at KUWTNYJ. Teddy is at Teddy Huncho. I am at Spring Blake. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.